All right, well, I don't know what that was. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. Don't yell at me. Stop yelling at me. What was I saying? The hell was I saying? Oh, the fumble. That was one of the worst calls I've seen. I don't know what a catch is anymore. If that wasn't a fumble, then I honestly don't know what a catch is anymore. To me, he clearly took, 3 or 4 steps or something after he caught the ball. So I don't know what you have to do anymore. It just seems like every year what's a catch and what's not a catch is getting harder and harder to figure out. I really just don't get it anymore. It looked to me like he caught the ball. The ball was not bouncing around in his hands. He seemed to clearly have the ball to me and take 3, almost 4 steps before he fumbled. So I'm not here to say that's why Clemson won the game and Ohio State lost. But to me, that was because I've seen people complaining about a lot of different calls that the refs made or didn't make in that game. Some of those pass interference calls can go either way. You see that in almost every game. And I picked Clemson to win this. I took Clemson -2 on video. So, it's not like I didn't lose money or I picked the wrong team or whatever. But to me, that was clearly a fumble. But it's like I said in the post-game video, though, if Ohio State is really looking for something to blame for why they lost this game, all those field goals in the first 20 minutes of the game, in the first quarter and a half, Georgia had a bad habit of this season. Driving down the field, bogging down, settling for field goals. And then what you're doing is, Ohio State scored 4 times. 4. But they only had 16 points because 1 touchdown and 3 field goals. So when you do that, what you do is you put the other team in a position to where one score, whether it's some kind of a fluke busted coverage or a kick return or whatever, one score puts that team right back in the game. So Ohio State completely dominated the first 20 minutes of that game, scoring 4 times. Clemson didn't score a single time, couldn't do anything offensively, couldn't stop Ohio State until Ohio State got down into the red area. Scored 4 times, but you're only up 16-0. That's a reason you lost. That's a bigger reason that you lost this game than anything the referees did or didn't do. The second reason I'm mad at my own team right now, if I'm an Ohio State fan, is that roughing the kicker and the penalties in general. Both of Clemson's first 2 touchdowns were a direct result, or it might have been the first and the third. But anyway, 2 Clemson touchdowns were a direct result of Ohio State penalties that clearly were penalties. Listen, that was targeting. Now, we can argue about whether or not the targeting rules themselves need to be changed, and that's a legitimate argument to have. But that was clearly targeting as the rule is written. So the referees didn't screw that up. Like I said, we can debate whether or not that should be targeting, but it currently is targeting. So that was targeting. And of course, they went on to score there because you had that targeting. That was 15 yards plus your second best defensive back gone from the game. That was clearly targeting. 15 yards. 2 plays later, you get another 15-yard penalty. And Clemson scored. And then in the second half, you had the roughing the punter. So, and they were punting from like their 10-yard line. So Ohio State went from being about to get the ball at midfield with a chance to go down and score, or at least kick a field goal. I mean, they only needed 15 or 20 yards for a field goal, but you get the ball at the 50, you're thinking touchdown. They went from being about to get the ball at around the 50-yard line to giving Clemson yet another free possession. And what did Clemson do? They went down and scored again. That's 14 points that Ohio State gave up because of mistakes they made, penalties they committed. And again, with the targeting, I get it. Some of the targeting rules are, can be debated. And we can do that. We can argue all we want about whether the targeting rules should be changed. But that was clearly targeting as the rule is written now. So I understand that the referees blew a couple of calls. Of course the referees blew a couple of calls. There's calls blown in every single game. I agree that the fumble thing was one of the worst calls in a big game I've ever seen. That was clearly a fumble. You will never be able to explain to me how that was not a catch. It was in his hands. It was not moving around. It was not bobbling. He took 3, almost 4 complete steps. Now, the steps were backwards, but that doesn't matter. That, to me, that was clearly a fumble, and that took 7 points away from Ohio State. And I get that. But again, you were in that position because you couldn't score touchdowns in the first half. You kept settling for field goals and self-inflicted wounds with the penalties. So did the referees blow that call? Yeah, they did. But you also blew a punt return by running into the kicker. Okay, you also put yourself in a hole by giving Clemson 30 free yards through penalties on that possession where they went down and scored. Slow motion or not, it doesn't matter. You can watch that in full speed. He took 3 complete steps, almost 4. Slow speed or full speed doesn't matter on that play. It was clearly a fumble in full speed. That was clearly a fumble. Clemson fans who are saying that isn't a fumble, that's just as ridiculous as Ohio State fans saying that's why they lost. So if you're a Clemson fan and I see some saying, watch it at full speed, it wasn't a fumble, that was clearly a fumble. And if you're a Clemson fan trying to say that wasn't a fumble, you're just as potato as the Ohio State fans who are saying that blown call cost them the game. No. Ohio State, what cost you the game was giving Clemson 30 free yards with two 15-yard penalties and a 3-play stretch to give them their first touchdown, and then running into the kicker in the second half, which gave them a free possession where they went down and scored. That's what cost you the game, and kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns in the first half. Not the blown fumble, but it was a fumble. And again, if you're a Clemson fan and you're trying to say that wasn't a fumble, you're just as ridiculous as the Ohio State fans who are saying that cost them the game. So that's now. With that being said, what a great! I hate that that happened. I hate that the fumble thing happened. I hate that the guy got ejected. I hate that there was missed calls both ways because that was an amazing game. I didn't have a rooting interest in that game outside of the fact that I picked Clemson -2 on video, but. As a college football fan, what an amazing game. Definitely the second best playoff game of all time. Of all time, right? And I know it only goes back 6 years now. So 12, but out of the 12 playoff games we've had, clearly the second best ever. And I don't think third place is even close to that game. I still put the Georgia game higher, that Rose Bowl, because it went to double overtime. Now, Clemson did come back to win this game being down 16, but Georgia was down worse than that to Oklahoma before coming back to win that one in double overtime. So I still think the Rose Bowl has been the best playoff game of all time. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm a Georgia fan, so you guys can let me know what you think in the comments section. But this was clearly the second best playoff game of all time. An amazing game. That's why we love college football. Back and forth, hard-hitting. I thought Justin Fields played well, and it was clear to me that there is, he's not 100% in terms of his knee. That doesn't have anything to do with his 2 interceptions, though. The first interception was bad. The second one, I don't know. They're not going to come out and blame each other. It looked to me like the receiver thought Fields was going to scramble, so he broke the route off to go the other way, and Fields just happened to throw the ball at the exact moment that wide receiver was making that decision. So that was just sort of a fluke interception there. Hard to blame really anybody for that one. But it was clear to me that running wise, Justin Fields was not at 100%. I don't think that's why they lost the game. I mean, again, there was injuries on both sides. J.K. Dobbins' ankle got banged up in this game. Clemson had players going down. So there's injuries all the way around. So I'm not blaming anything on the loss. The better team won this game. These were two really, really good teams, and somebody had to lose. But this was an amazing game, just a great game. Trevor Lawrence, 67-yard touchdown run, unbelievable. Trevor Lawrence is from Georgia. I've been watching him since he was in 9th grade, and I argue with people all the time. Clearly Trevor Lawrence not a dual threat quarterback, but I tell people, but he can run, and besides that, he is mobile. He's athletic. He can move around in the pocket. He can scramble. But I didn't think he would have a 67-yard touchdown run. I didn't see that coming. Trevor Lawrence looks a little awkward when he runs because he's so tall, I think, and he doesn't look fast when he runs. But every step he takes is 4.5 yards when he's at full stride. So he's moving. So a great run by him there. I've watched a lot of Ohio State games this year. There are 10 or more, at least, designed runs called for Justin Fields in every single Ohio State game I've watched this year. You watched the Clemson game, 1 or 2. So it was clear to me that they were sort of trying to protect his knee with not as many design runs. He did take off and scramble a few times, but even when he did, you could see him hobbling a little bit. And again, I'm not saying that's why Ohio State lost. I'm just pointing out things on both sides that I noticed while watching this game. I think the better team won. I didn't know who the better team was going into the game. I really didn't. I thought this was a really hard game to pick. I thought this was one of the most evenly matched first-round playoff games that the playoff committee has given us since its inception back in 2013, whatever it was, 2014. So I didn't know who the better team was, but I think Clemson was the better team. Again, I get that the referees made some iffy calls, but I think that happens in every single game. It just so happens that in a game of this magnitude, that ends up being this close, those iffy calls get way more attention. And, I understand why. And again, to me, the targeting, I think you have to make that call according to the rules today. If you want to argue about changing the rules, that's fine. We can do that. But as the rules are written now, to me, that was clearly targeting. The fumble that got overturned, that was one of the worst calls I've seen in a big game. That was terrible. That was clearly a fumble. No one will convince me otherwise. I don't know what you have to do to make a catch anymore. I really don't. The ball was not moving around. He clearly had the ball secured in both hands and took 3, almost 4 steps before the ball came out. I'll never understand how that wasn't a catch. I don't think that's what cost him the game. I've went over that in detail already. If you joined us late, you can rewatch the first 10 or 15 minutes. Penalties, self-inflicted penalties for Ohio State, and kicking field goals instead of touchdowns had a way bigger impact on this game. Negatively for Ohio State than any missed call did. So, but an amazing game. I mean, as a college football fan, if you watched that game, you were on the edge of your seat the entire. I streamed it over on the Patreon page. I mean, just an unbelievable game, unbelievable. And we needed that after that shit show that Oklahoma gave us in the first one. I'm putting Oklahoma on a 2-year playoff ban. I'm tired of seeing this now. I don't know when they're going to wake up, just because. And this is always going to be the argument as long as you have people picking the teams and no clear-cut mathematical fair way to do it like the NFL or some other teams do. The NFL's only got 32 teams. That makes it easy. You can't do that in college football. There's too many teams. So it's always going to be this way. But, trying to figure out who deserves to be in versus who are the best 4 teams, that's always going to be a struggle. But 3-4 years in a row, putting Oklahoma in just because they win the Big 12. Now, I do think winning your conference should matter, but it shouldn't be all that matters. And it's just clear that you should be able to – you could watch Oklahoma this year and you could see, especially the last 6 or 7 games, that there was no way Oklahoma was even going to come close to slowing down LSU. You just knew that. The playoff committee should have known that, and they should not have put Oklahoma in. And I'm getting tired of seeing it. Outside of the 2017 game against Georgia, there hasn't been an interesting Oklahoma playoff game. It's just, and how many you just keep losing time after time after time after time. The Big Ten got shut out in the playoffs 2 years in a row when I put them on a playoff ban. Let them back in this year with Ohio State, and Ohio State gave us a good game. So clearly the Big Ten learned their lesson after I put them on their playoff ban. I'm putting Oklahoma on a 2-year playoff ban. I don't want to see Oklahoma in the 2020 playoffs. I don't care if they go 13-0 and win every game 100 points, because if that happens, that means they're going to win 150-50. I don't want to see Oklahoma in the playoffs again. And if they put Oklahoma in the playoffs next year, I'm not watching the game. I'm not watching it. I'm not streaming it. I'm not doing any videos about it. I'm not previewing it. I won't talk about it on a live show. I won't take any phone calls about it, because I couldn't be less interested to see Oklahoma in another playoff. They're pitiful. There's 6 or 7 teams that you could put in over Oklahoma. And, this whole deserves it versus who's actually the better team. They need to start putting more weight towards who's the better team. And I'm not saying any of this because Georgia is 5th. I don't think Georgia deserved to be in either. And we would have got blown out no matter which of those 3 teams we played. Ohio State, no matter where they would have, if they would have put Georgia instead of Oklahoma, no matter what the matchup would have ended up being, whether it would have been Georgia versus LSU, Georgia versus Ohio State, or Georgia versus Clemson, we'd have got blown out no matter who we played too. So this isn't an argument for Georgia. This isn't me making an argument that Georgia should have been in. This is me making an argument that Oklahoma should not have been in. They put somebody else in. Put Oregon in. They lost to Arizona State. Whoopity-doo! We lost to South Carolina. Okay? So put Oregon in. Give somebody a chance besides Oklahoma. I'm sick and tired of seeing Oklahoma embarrass themselves every single time they get placed into the college football playoff, because that's what's happening. That's what's happening. They're winning a terrible Big 12, and they're getting placed into the playoff. I'm tired of seeing that. I don't want to see it anymore. And I'm putting them on a 2-year playoff ban. And if the playoff committee is watching this video, and I'm pretty sure that they are, I don't want to see Oklahoma in a playoff next year in 2020. And I don't want to see him in there in 2021. When Spencer Rattler is a senior, fine. Give Oklahoma another chance. Until then, I don't want to see Oklahoma anywhere near the playoffs. I don't want to see it. I'm sick of it. Their defense is horrendous. They don't have the talent. And I was listening to somebody the other day. It might have been Mark Rogers. It was Mark Rogers. You guys know Mark Rogers. He did a live show. I think it was Saturday night. Maybe it was yesterday. These days run together. Somebody called in and they were like, I don't understand how Oklahoma's defense can be so bad. They recruit in the top 8 to 15 every single year. That's true. But look at who they're recruiting. Okay? I pulled this up. I think it was on National Signing Day when I did this stream, or it might have been another live stream. I pulled it up and showed it to you. We looked at Oklahoma's recruiting class. Something like 1 out of the top 8 players that Oklahoma signed in that year that we looked at, which was either this year or 2019 class, 1 of the top 8, I think it was, players that they signed were defensive players. So, yes, Oklahoma is recruiting in the top 15 every single year, top 10 some years. I think they average around 10 or 11. So, yes, they have a talented team. 90% of that talent is on offense, not defense. And I'm just tired of seeing it. I don't want to see Oklahoma anywhere near the playoffs. Am I wrong? Aren't y'all sick of seeing it? I mean, I know Oklahoma fans don't care. They just, they want another shot. I get it. If Georgia was in the Oklahoma boat, I would feel the same way. But as a college football fan who enjoys watching college football, I'm sick of seeing Oklahoma get boat raced and humiliated every time the playoff committee hand selects them and places them into the playoffs. I'm just tired of seeing it. It's just not interesting to me anymore. Outside of, I made a video with 5 minutes into the second quarter of that game. LSU beats Oklahoma to win Peach Bowl. 5 minutes into the second quarter, it was 35-7 when I made that video. 5 minutes into the second quarter. I made a tweet at halftime. Let's do a running clock in the second half. I mean, let's euthanize this game. Pull the plug on this thing. Nobody is interested in seeing that. Nobody. LSU fans were bored watching that game. That's how bad it was. LSU fans were changing the channel. Nobody wants to see that. Waikiki, thank you for the super chat, sir. He says, who would you put in the 4 spot? 2-loss Georgia, or 2-loss Oregon and 2-loss UGA. I actually just addressed that a few minutes ago. I'm not making this argument against Oklahoma because I'm a Georgia fan. I don't think Georgia deserved to be in. I don't. But Oregon won the Pac-12 with 2. Why are you going to put Georgia in with 2 losses and didn't win their conference? No, it would be Oregon with that should have got in. Now, if you're talking about just teams that are better than Oklahoma, there's 5, 6, 7 teams probably that are better than Oklahoma. But as far as who deserved that 4 spot, probably the first in line would be Oregon, I would assume. They're a conference winner with 2 losses. So I'm not making this argument. Georgia, like I said, Georgia would have got blown out by any of the other 3 playoff teams, period. So I'm just tired of seeing that. I honestly am. But there were no games yesterday. Here's the games coming up for today, though, and 2 and also. All right, here's what's coming up today. Let's look at the schedule. I know Florida and Virginia play tonight. All right, here we go. Monday, December 30th. Western Kentucky versus Western Michigan at 12:30. Well, you can go out and eat your lunch or whatever you're doing. You don't have to watch that one. Mississippi State at Louisville. Mississippi State is favored by, I think, 4, 5, or 6, depending on where you look. I previewed this game, so some of you know this already. I like Louisville in this game. I know I'm an SEC homer. I'll be pulling for Mississippi. Like, I hope Mississippi State wins for the whole SEC thing. I don't care how many of you that pisses off. I'm an SEC homer. You know, I hear these people from. I see Clemson fans. I don't understand this whole. SEC thing. I'm a Clemson fan. I pull for Clemson. I could care less about the rest of the ACC. Sir, Tater, why would anyone have pride in the ACC? So I don't blame you for that. I mean, conference pride is foreign to the ACC for obvious reasons. I mean, they're terrible outside of Clemson. I think Louisville wins this game. I don't like Mississippi State's coach. Well, it's not that I don't like him. I don't think he's the long-term answer there. I'm surprised he's still there, to be honest. I thought they might cut ties after this season, or that he might even quit and take another job. I like Louisville here. I do like Louisville's coaching staff. Scott Satterfield, right? Isn't that who it is? Came from App State. I do like Louisville. And they got better as the season went along. And I think they actually pull the upset here and get a win outright. 4 o'clock on ESPN. The Music City Bowl. Cal at Illinois is another game you can skip at 4 o'clock. You don't have to watch it. Is it Cal or Illinois? Cal, I think, is favored in this game by 6. I like Illinois, though. I like Illinois in this game. And then Florida versus Virginia. This is, I guess, the biggest game of the day. It's a New Year's 6 game. It's the Orange Bowl. I think Florida's going to roll them. I don't think this will be a close game. I think this will be similar to last year's game, Florida versus Michigan. Outside of Bryce Perkins, Virginia doesn't have a whole lot of options or weapons on offense. I do like Virginia's defense. I'll say that. So if for some reason Florida's offense is struggling and Virginia's defense can get Trask rattled or maybe create a couple of turnovers or something, maybe this game can get interesting. If Bryce Perkins has just a crazy game, maybe he's going to have to throw for 200 and run for 100, something like that. I think if Virginia has any chance of pulling the upset here, I'm not sure they can do that against the Florida defense, so I like Florida big here in that game. But I will watch this one. I'll watch some of this Mississippi State-Louisville game to see if I'm right about the upset on Louisville, and I'll watch this game here tonight. I'm curious, how many of you guys watch these bowl games anymore? Clearly the players don't care about them, at least some players on some teams. What if I told you Georgia has 20 players not playing in the Sugar Bowl? Can we talk about that again? $20. Georgia has 20 players sitting out the Sugar Bowl. I still like the bowl games. Now, there are some I don't watch. If they give us a terrible matchup, I'm not watching. I'm not watching Western Michigan versus Western Kentucky or whatever it was. I'm not watching that. But I'll watch the Orange Bowl, Florida and Virginia. I watched some of the Cotton Bowl, Memphis and Penn State. I didn't talk much about that game because it happened to be on the same day as the playoffs. But that was an exciting game, a high-scoring game. Penn State ended up winning by a couple of touchdowns, but that was a good game. 20 players out for Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. I'm going to tell you this right now. Is it possible Georgia wins the Sugar Bowl? Yes. Anything is possible. If there's anybody out there that puts even one dime on Georgia, you're insane. You're insane. Georgia could win, and you can show back up and tell me I was wrong. And I'm a Georgia fan. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think there's a team in America that could beat Baylor missing 20 players. I don't think LSU could beat Baylor missing 20 players. I don't. I don't think Clemson or Ohio State could beat Baylor missing 20 players. I don't see it happening. I don't think Baylor's a great team. I don't even. And what's sort of funny is they're not even great offensively, which is weird for the Big 12. But they're good. And if they have Charlie Brewer, that quarterback, if he's able to play, they might blow us out. It's just tickets to the Sugar Bowl started out at $8 on StubHub a month ago, 3 weeks ago. Then they were down to $6. A couple of days ago, you could get seats in the upper deck for $1. $1. You put 100 on Georgia straight up, or did you lay to 6 points? It's frustrating. I know. I've said this a million times, and you guys know me well enough by now to know I rarely change my mind about anything, and I don't see myself changing my mind on my feelings about this either. I understand why some players choose not to play in the bowl game. I just disagree with it. So, these people that want to spend 2.5 days on Twitter trying to explain to me why the players are sitting out. I know why the players are sitting out. I just disagree with it. So if you're one of those people, you're wasting your time. I just disagree with it. I looked at a 2020 mock draft yesterday. I wish I could remember where I saw it or which one it was. But all the mock drafts are basically the same. The order the players are taken might not be the same, but generally speaking, the 32 players are about the same. I looked at a mock draft from 2020 yesterday. Of all 32 players projected to get drafted in the first round in this mock draft that I looked at, 32 teams, that's 32 players taken in the first round. Of all 32 players projected to get drafted in round one, only one team in America had anybody on that list choosing to sit out the bowl game, and it was Georgia. So this idea that everyone is doing it, no, everyone is not doing it. Everyone is not doing it. Jerry Jeudy will probably be a top 5 pick. He's playing. Daniel Jones for Duke last year played. Top 10 pick. What if they get hurt? What if they go check their mail and get run over by the mailman? I don't understand. You know, I don't understand it. I don't think a player should sit out the walk-on bowl, much less the Sugar Bowl. And I see fans, and I'm sure this happens in all fan bases, but I'm a Georgia fan. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups and stuff with thousands of Georgia fans. So when it seems like I'm picking on Georgia fans, it's not that I'm singling them out. It's that that's what I see the most of. But this idea that, as soon as we lost the SEC title game, our season was over anyway, so I don't blame these players for not playing in the Sugar Bowl. What? Who in their right mind? Georgia has made it to the playoffs once. One time. We've won the SEC one time in the last 14 years. What is this thought process or feeling that the Sugar Bowl is somehow beneath Georgia? This is just an insane thought process. And, unfortunately, I don't know whether it started with the fans and trickled to the team or started with the team and trickled to the fans. But this team doesn't care about the Sugar Bowl in general. Now, I know certain, these players come out, they give their interviews. Oh, we've been practicing hard and, we're ready to go and we're excited about the Sugar Bowl. We heard all that last year, and it was clear. It was clear that they could have cared less, or they couldn't have cared less. They didn't want to be there. Half the Georgia team had to get drug off Bourbon Street at 1 a.m. last year, the night before the Sugar Bowl. You had players choosing to sit out the game last year, but still flying to the game with the team, hanging out on the sideline like groupies. It's just ridiculous. And you know what makes me mad? At least Andrew Thomas, I thought about whether or not I should say this or not because I can't prove it. I'm going to say it anyway, though. What do I care? Let me say this. I'm not saying this is true because I don't know. It's one thing for Andrew Thomas and Isaiah Wilson to come out after the SEC championship game and say, thanks, but I'm out. I'm done. I'm going to start preparing for the draft. I'm not playing in the Sugar Bowl. Have a good morning. I hate that. That pisses me off. But at least they're honest. At least they're honest about it. I think there are some players that aren't playing and don't have the balls to say that. I 100% believe that. I think it happened last year. And I think it's happening this year. I think there are players on Georgia's team who are not playing and they're choosing not to play, but they're given given a different reason. And that's worse. I'm not going to name any names because this isn't anything I can. This is just my opinion. 20 players. That's 25% of our scholarship players are not playing. 25%. Andrew Thomas, starting right tackle, left tackle, not playing. Isaiah Wilson, starting right tackle, not playing. Ben Cleveland, starting right guard, not playing. Lawrence Cager, hurt, not playing. Dominic Blaylock, hurt, not playing. Brian Herrien, fired. He didn't quit. Brian Herrien got fired. Tyler Clark, fired. J.R. Reed, not playing. Walter Grant, not playing. 20 players. I had an Alabama fan the other day tell me no Alabama players were sitting out. Well, the Maury Povich show determined that was a lie. You have 2 starters. 1 starter on defense, I think. Or might be 2. Terrell Lewis, is that his name? And you got 1 other guy. Two players out for Bama. 3 if you count injuries, because 2 is out. I've had Florida fans tell me 1 player. Is there a Florida fan in the chat? Celine Driver, you're in there. What are you hearing? I had a Florida fan tell me 1 player not playing. C.J. Henderson, 1 player. Okay. Sticky fingers, like I said, I get it too. I understand why. I just disagree. Football players play football. That's my and I said this too, and I even put this on Twitter. And sometimes I'll say things. There's certain things I won't put on Twitter sometimes if I don't feel like having to argue for a week. But I put this on Twitter. As soon as the minute a player decides he's not going to play in the bowl game, I mean the minute he says that, locker cleared out, dorm room cleared out, and that's it for him. Don't show up at the pro day. Go have your pro day somewhere else. If you can't finish what you start in a season, you're not part of this team. You're not traveling with us to the bowl game. You're not using our facilities to prepare for the NFL. Finish what you start. It's 1 game. Could you get hurt? Yeah. Yes, you could get hurt. What's next? Let me ask you this. If Georgia, let's say Georgia is 6-3 this coming year. I don't think that's going to happen. That's not what I'm saying. This is just hypothetical. I'm just using Georgia. I could use any team as an example. I'm just using Georgia. Doesn't matter. What if Georgia is 6-3 after 9 games next year? Okay. The argument that people make for players sitting out the bowl game, it means nothing. That's what they say. It means nothing. Why should they risk injury for a meaningless game? Okay, if Georgia is 6-3 after 9 games next year, should every pro prospect on the team sit out the entire month of November? Is that where we're headed now? For example, Andrew Thomas, right? He quit after the SEC championship game. Everyone has known he's a first-round draft pick since about halfway through his freshman year. He started every single game since the minute he stepped on campus as a true freshman at left tackle. Gives up no sacks. Everyone has known this guy was a first-round pick. By the time this year started, he was a guaranteed top 10, top 5 pick. If we would have been 6-3 this year after our first 9 games, and I'm asking you people who are making excuses for these quitters. If Georgia was 6-3 after 9 games, and you're giving Andrew Thomas a pass or whoever else because the bowl game don't matter, they're not playing for anything. If you're not in the playoffs, what's the point? These are the excuses I hear. Why should Andrew Thomas play the last 3 games of the regular season? Why? I want to hear from one of these excuse makers in the comments section. And I'm going to do this on the call-in show tomorrow night too. In fact, I might only do that. I want to hear, well, we won't only do that, but I want one of these excuse makers in the comments section right now to tell me why a team that is 6-3 after 9 games, why shouldn't every single pro prospect on that team sit out the last 3 games of the regular season if, quote unquote, they're playing for nothing? Why? Why should they play then? What's the point? If that's how you feel. So Cajunomics, at least, okay, so you think players should start sitting out the regular season too. And see, that's the problem. Because once it becomes acceptable, then people are going to start doing it. So I just have a big problem with it. I keep seeing this, that now that we have the playoffs, the bowl games don't matter. We have had a BCS national championship game for 20 years. No one sat out the bowl game. Georgia played in the Sugar Bowl in 2007. The Sugar Bowl meant just as much in 2007 as it does now. Nothing, according to these people. We had a BCS title game. If you weren't in the BCS title game, then your bowl don't matter. No one sat out the 2007 Sugar Bowl. Not a single player. So why now? Now that 4 teams are in the playoffs, everyone else can sit out, but when we had just a 2-team playoff, nobody sat out. What's going to happen when we go to an 8-team playoff? That's when you're going to see people sit out in November. That's what's going to happen. Oh, we're 4-4. We're 4-4. No way we're going to make the top 8. I'm not playing in November. I mean, what's going to happen to the Iron Bowl when half the Alabama roster ain't playing in it? If that's really what y'all want to see. Y'all want to see these kids sit out. We're not playing in meaningless games. How many Georgia starters sat out the Arkansas State game this year? 0. None. Why did Andrew Thomas play against Arkansas State? Why? What was the point? You know what the point was? He's on the team! That's why. Football players play football. If you're on a football team and there's a game to play, you play unless you're injured. But this excuse that the game don't matter, does anyone think the Arkansas State game mattered? No. Stop. But that's where we're headed. And the more fans that take on this attitude of it's okay for players to do it, the worse it's going to get. The worse it's going to get. I'm not going to stop calling them out. Every single time I post something like this on Twitter, I get murdered for a week. This guy wants these kids to risk millions of dollars just for his entertainment. Yes. You want them to risk injury just so you can brag on social media about a national title. Does that make you better than me? Well, what an idiot. Slim, thank you for the super chat, sir. Manny Diaz made a comment. He wanted Mike Bobo. Miami chats will all be potato level 100 billion because all they want is up-tempo spread as if they haven't seen a Chip Kelly team lately. Well, Mike Bobo's at South Carolina. I'll say this. I'm a Mike Bobo fan when it comes to an offensive coordinator. Obviously, he flopped as a head coach, but I like Mike Bobo as an offensive coordinator. I wish Georgia would have went after him in some type of role. If it wasn't going to be OC, something. But I sort of knew that wasn't going to happen because Mike Bobo isn't the type of guy that Kirby can boss around. Mike Bobo ain't spending his days refilling Kirby's coffee cup like James Coley does. If Mike Bobo is going to be the offensive coordinator somewhere, he's going to be the offensive coordinator. For real, not just in title alone. So I knew he wasn't falling for that banana in the tailpipe routine. Waikiki, thank you for the super chat, sir. If UJ has 20 sitting out for any reason, there's a bigger issue. UJ isn't good enough year to year to have playoff or bust. I couldn't agree more. There's only 2 teams, 3 if you want to include Oklahoma, that have any business having an attitude like that. That's it. Clemson, Bama, and Oklahoma. They've made the playoffs more years than they haven't. So if some if some Alabama fan wants to come on and tell me that, like, this year we didn't make the playoffs, so who cares about the Citrus Bowl? I disagree, but I understand where they get that from. They're way more entitled to hold that opinion than any Georgia fan is about the Sugar Bowl. Way more entitled to hold that opinion than any Georgia fan is about the Sugar Bowl. I don't understand it. I don't. Now, I do think Georgia's an elite program. Georgia has been top 10 3 years in a row, made the playoffs one of those years, won their division 3 years in a row, won the conference 2 years ago, won a playoff game 2 seasons ago, finished 5th in the final playoff poll 2 years in a row. They made the playoffs in 17, finished 5th in the last playoff poll after the conference championship games in 18, and finished 5th in the last playoff poll after the conference championship games in 19. So other than being a troll in the comments section and saying Georgia's no good or whatever it is y'all say, Georgia's an elite program. They're at the doorstep. But they're not Alabama, Clemson, or Oklahoma. They don't deserve to have this attitude. I'm talking about the coaches, the players, the fans. Nobody related in any way to Georgia deserves to have the attitude of playoffs or bust. We made it one time. Now we're thumbing our nose at the Sugar Bowl. It's insane. It's insane. CFM3, thank you for the super chat. He says, that feeling when you sit out a bowl game and whiff in a draft. I don't wish that on the – I mean, I wish every player that came through Georgia nothing but success, whether that's in the NFL or something else they do professionally. I'm not going to change my mind on that because they sit out the bowl game. But it does change my opinion of them looking back. DeAndre Baker was a great player. I'll never consider him an all-time great because he chose to sit out the bowl game last year. And the same's going to go for Andrew Thomas and Isaiah Wilson and any of these other 20 players that I find out is choosing not to play. And the players that put weed ahead of football because they didn't care about the Sugar Bowl. Those players, too. They can kiss my foot, too. Alex, thank you for the super chat. He says, Morning Lou, YouTube live stream for national championship game. I'm going to do some YouTube live streams for I think I'm going to do a YouTube stream for Tennessee versus Indiana. The national championship game will be on Patreon. But that's the only Patreon stream left for the college football season. So whatever other games I live stream will be on YouTube. I'm definitely doing Tennessee versus Indiana. And I'll have to look and see when some of the other times and all that are. I thought about doing Florida versus Virginia, but I just think that game's going to be so one-sided. I hate to spend 4 hours streaming a game that could be like, Florida wins like 48-20 or something, which is what I have a feeling is probably going to happen. Here's what I'll do though. I'll tell you this: if for some reason the Florida-Virginia game tonight is close at halftime, I will come out here and live stream the second half on YouTube. I'll do that. The thing you have to understand about the Patreon page, and I know it irritates certain people that I stream the games over there, the way Patreon works, I have to give the Patreon, like, people don't join the Patreon page but just because I have to provide things. I have to give them a reason to join. And one of the perks or whatever they call it on the Patreon page that I do is stream certain games. And so that's why I do that. I don't stream on Patreon to punish the people that aren't on Patreon. I stream on Patreon to reward the people that are. So I hope that makes sense. And I know not everybody wants to join the Patreon page, and I know not everybody can join the Patreon, and that's perfectly okay. I don't mind that at all. And I did stream several games this year on YouTube. But the majority are on Patreon because that's just one of the things I have to do to keep people over there. So I hope that makes sense and is a pretty good explanation. But if the Florida-Virginia game is close, if it's competitive in the first half, then I will stream the second half tonight on YouTube, and then I'm definitely doing the Tennessee-Indiana game on YouTube. And if there's another game I can stream that I think will be interesting, then of course I'll do that too. But the national championship game is going to be on Patreon. But thank you for the super chat, Alex. I really appreciate that. It's 9:00. What else did I wanted to talk about New Year's resolutions today. Do you guys make New Year's resolutions? I typically don't. I'll be honest with you. I typically don't make New Year's resolutions. But I was talking to Miss Lou last night. I think I'm gonna make some New Year's resolutions this year. Not like the typical ones like I want to lose 10 pounds or I want to start exercising. Not like that. Most of them are like well, it doesn't really matter. But I'm thinking about setting some New Year's resolutions for myself this year, and I think really what it is, I think they're more like goals, right? But like some of those goals, like to accomplish some of those goals, I feel like there's certain things I have to change, and so that's where sort of the New Year's resolution thing comes in. Like I stay up too late at night sometimes, and it's for a variety of reasons. And I'm not talking about Tuesday and Thursdays. Obviously, I stay up late. I do the night shows. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about other nights of the week. It's like, and it's for different reasons. I feel like if I didn't, because I get up real early in the morning, so like I feel like if I didn't stay up so late at night, I could do better work during the day, whether that's here on YouTube or whatever else, and more work during the day. So like I have some goals for the channel for next year, subscriber goals, views goals, things I want to accomplish, whatever on the channel. And I feel like to reach those goals, I have to either do more of what I'm doing, or I have to do what I am doing better. And one of the ways I think I can do that is by going to bed earlier at night and getting a little bit more sleep. I probably get about 5 hours of sleep on average right now. If I could get that closer to 6, I think that would make a big difference. Like this morning, I'll give you an example. I went to bed what I consider early last night. I laid down at about 9:30. I probably went to sleep at about 10:30. That's early to me. I got up at 5:45 this morning, and I feel great. As soon as this live stream is over, I'll take a 10 or 15 minute break for whatever, and then I'll come right back out here, and I'm ready to start working on a video. Like I feel great today. Generally, I'm up past 12 though. And then I still get up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. I'll come out here, do this show like I'm doing now, and I'm great. It's great. I'm energetic. I drink my coffee. But like as soon as the morning show is over, and this has happened a lot of times since I started doing it. As soon as the morning show is over, I'm like, I really don't feel like sitting out here and making a video. Now, I usually end up doing it, but I feel like I'm not putting 100% into the video when I do that, if that makes sense. So, anyway, I'm thinking about I have some goals for next year, and I'm thinking about setting some New Year's resolutions that will help me accomplish those goals. So it's not like some people do to quit drinking or quit smoking or lose weight or whatever. It's not that I'm not eating chocolate anymore, whatever it is. It's not that. It's not that type of New Year's resolution. Like they're work related. I'd like to find a way to spend more time with Mrs. Lou and Luann and Lou Jr. too. And it's not work related or anything why I don't, but I get involved in these, and this mainly only happens during football season, but I can't walk away from an argument. And I'm in all these football groups and I'm on Twitter and, I don't know, maybe I need to turn notifications. I wonder if there's a way to turn notifications off from a certain time to a certain time. Like turn all notifications off on my phone from like 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 9 o'clock at night or something. Because what happens is, the kids come home from school, Miss Lou comes home from work, whatever, and we're eating dinner but anyway, my phone is just vibrating nonstop, and I try not to look at it, but you know how that is. And so I'll look at it, and it'll be somebody wanting to argue or somebody, saying I was wrong about something or whatever, and I can't let it go. I cannot let it go. I cannot walk away from a football argument. I cannot do it. And so I end up getting caught up on my phone arguing football from 6:30 at night till 7:30 or less. So I'll spend an hour on Facebook or Twitter arguing with somebody. I got to stop doing that. And sometimes that's the reason not a lot of time, but sometimes that's the reason I'm up late. Like the kids will go to bed at 9 o'clock or whatever. I'll come sit on the couch and pick up my phone and somebody wants to argue. And the next thing I know, it's like 11 o'clock. And I'm like, what am I doing? I just spent 2 hours arguing with this guy about whether or not Jake Fromm's a first round draft pick or whatever. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Stop. Am I the only one that does that? I can't walk away from a football argument. And I think in some ways it has benefited me on the channel, but I think my family has paid a price for that. I feel like I'm there, but I'm not there, like I'm absent. It feels like I'm on my phone. And I know they do stories about this on the news all the time. I feel like I'm on my phone too much in the evenings is mainly what it is. The reason is almost irrelevant. For me, it's football arguments, but I think a lot of people, I think that's like a societal problem right now. I think I go downtown or I go out of town to big cities where people walk around a lot. Everyone's walking around. Everyone. Let me see if I can get where you can see me. But everyone's walking around like this. Here, you see 100 people walking down the street. They're all like this. You know what I mean? Head down on their phone, and I'm guilty as charged. I admit it. So that's something I wanted. I want to try to be better about in 2020. Spending more. Again, this is goal oriented. Goals are big to me. I like to set goals. It sort of gives me something to strive for. And then, like, if there's ever a day I don't want to do something, I'll say, well, if you want to hit that goal you set, you better do it. So, like, I want to spend more time with Luann, Lou Jr., and Mrs. Lou, like, especially in the evenings, And to do that, to hit that, to reach the goal of spending more time with them, I think one of the things I need to do is stop with the never-ending football arguments. Because they are never ending. And I say this all the time. This is something I've said on the channel before, too. If you know enough about football, you'll never lose a football argument. There's always something you can say. Now, you might not win the argument because the other person might know just as much about you. But if you're knowledgeable enough, there's a comeback for everything. I can win an argument with an Alabama football fan about football. How? Alabama has dominated Georgia the last 10 years, basically, to all the national titles. They've clearly a better program. I can still win an argument. Now, unless they are as knowledgeable as me, then neither one of us will win. But I'll never lose. And that's the problem. on Facebook. There's always one more thing I can say, right? I mean, that's just what it is, and I got to stop that. I got to stop doing that. Anyway, I'm excited about this morning show, though. This is going to be good. I've got some big things planned for 2020 with the morning show. The nighttime shows are going to continue, and those will always be the college football call-in shows. We do them year-round, Tuesday, Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. The morning show is going to continue to Monday, Wednesday, Friday to start out. We'll see how it goes. If it goes well, I'm going to expand it to 5 days a week, and I've got some great things. A major change to the morning show. A major change to the morning show is coming very soon. Very soon. Yeah, I'm doing the Georgia game on Patreon, too. I think I forgot. I think I said the national championship game was the only one I was doing on Patreon, but I'm doing the Georgia game, too. That'll be Wednesday night. So Wednesday night on Patreon, I'm streaming the Georgia game. And then January 13th on Patreon, I'm streaming the national championship game. Any other games that I stream will be on YouTube. Starting tonight, Florida, Virginia. If it's close at halftime, I'll come out here and stream the second half. So, yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. I forgot about that. Alex says, Morning Lou, YouTube live stream. Oh, yeah, I just read that. Celine's Glitter Gator has something to say. Let me scroll up and find it here. Hopefully it's still here. I don't like how YouTube has changed the super chats around. Thank you for that super chat, sir. I appreciate that. I think you're the winner today. LSU 31, Clemson 30. I think Joe Burrow will be too much. The game is in New Orleans, and their defense has improved. But if the Taters hold them under 30 and Burrow under 300, give me the Taters. You know what? I actually think it's going to be a little more high scoring than that. You remember when Deshaun Watson and Clemson beat Alabama? I think that was Clemson's natty in 2016. Is that right? In any case, it was when Clemson beat Alabama with Deshaun Watson, and he had, I think he had, was it 310 yards or 410 yards passing? It might have been 410. Anyway, and it was like a 45-40 type. I think that's what we're looking at here with LSU and Clemson. A lot of people thought the Ohio State-Clemson game was going to be high scoring, and I said, no, I think it was going to be in the 20s, and it ended up being in the 20s. I think this one will be high scoring. I think this one will be like that Alabama-Clemson game when they had Deshaun. I think it will be 42-38, 38-35, 47-40. I think it'll be high scoring. I think it'll be a little bit higher scoring than what you are guessing here. As far as who is going to win, I've been saying all year, or since the playoffs were announced, that Clemson versus Ohio State, to me, was the national title game. After watching what LSU did to Oklahoma, I got to rethink that. If LSU's defense is really, it's hard to tell. When LSU's defense shut Georgia down, that wasn't enough to completely change my mind because Georgia's offense hasn't been good all year. We were without three of our best offensive players, four. The first half. I mean, the first half of that game we didn't have. I know DeAndre Swift technically played. He had 2 touches. He was out there for shits and giggles. He was a decoy. So we didn't have DeAndre Swift. We didn't have Lawrence Cager. Dom Blaylock blew his knee out in the first half, and George Pickens was suspended for the first half. Pickens came back in the second half, but the other 3 didn't. So it was hard for me really to say, wow, yeah, LSU's defense really is amazing because they shut Georgia down. Georgia's offense wasn't impressive all year, and in that SEC championship game, they were just missing too many weapons on offense for me to judge LSU's defense fairly. But what they did to Oklahoma was impressive defensively to me. I know Oklahoma ended up scoring some points, but they were mostly garbage points. Like I said, it was 35-7 5 minutes into the second quarter. So if LSU's defense is as good as it appears to be, I think they can beat Clemson. I thought LSU's defense was going to cost them a national title this year, but their offense is unbelievable. Clemson better find a way to sack Joe Burrow. That's all I can say. That's all I can tell you. If they don't sack Joe Burrow, forget it. LSU will win, and it might not be close. And I'm not talking about just getting pressure on him either. Getting pressure on Joe Burrow does no good. You've got to get him on the ground. You have to sack him. Georgia got pressure on Joe Burrow in almost every single play, and he made us look silly. So I know Clemson's better than Georgia. But if I'm the Clemson defensive coordinator, that's my number one priority. We got to get Joe Burrow on the ground. You got to sack him. But anyway, we got 2 weeks to talk about that game. J. Cole, thank you for the super chat, sir. Let's see what you have to say here. Lou, we ain't spring chickens anymore. Go dog. I know I ain't no spring chicken. I got to start getting some sleep, man. Hell, I'm getting to be so old now. It's almost to the point I can't sleep throughout the night without having to get up and pee at least once. That's how bad. That's how old and rickety I'm getting now. Like, even if I don't have to pee before I go to bed now, I make myself go. I say, you better go. You better go. If you don't, it's going to be up at 2 in the morning. That's probably more information than you want. But, yeah, that's how old Uncle Lou is getting there. That's how old I'm getting. Anyway, I am going to end the stream, guys, and get started on a video for today. But I really appreciate you guys watching. I love this morning show. I can't tell y'all how much I love it. And like I said, this is something new. I only started it a little over a month ago, month and a half, 2 months, whatever it was. And, man, the support you guys have showed me with this new morning show has been unbelievable. I really appreciate y'all tuning in. And like I said, there are some great things coming to this morning show starting in 2020. My plan is to kick off the brand new and improved version of the Uncle Lou Morning Show next Monday. That's the plan. I think you guys are really going to enjoy what I have in store and what I have planned for this show for 2020. But I absolutely love this show. Obviously, I like talking football, but I do that a lot on this channel through uploads and the nighttime shows. This morning show is going to be a lot of it's always going to be football and sports. It's always going to tilt that direction, but we're going to do a lot of things on this morning show that are different. So I think it'll be a good thing. And like I said, on Monday, I think you guys will be excited to see what we're doing here on the show. So appreciate y'all tuning in this morning. I love you guys. Happy New Year. Happy New Year's Eve. If I don't get a chance to talk to you again, I'll have some videos uploaded and there will be no live show this Tuesday night. That's New Year's Eve. I went and bought $200 worth of bombs yesterday, so we're going to blow shit up on New Year's Eve. So the next live show will be Wednesday morning, and it'll be a call-in show too, because even though it's Wednesday, it's New Year's Day, bunch of bowl games on. So even though it's Wednesday, normally the morning shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are not call-in shows. The Wednesday show will be a call-in show, just like the normal Saturday morning shows. So the next live show Wednesday morning. I'll see you guys then. Don't forget to check out the videos. I'll upload one today and tomorrow. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a good morning.